Imagine falling from the deck of a sinking ship into the cold waters of the Mediterranean. The vessel is breaking apart behind you, valuable cargo is disappearing beneath the waves, and everything you spent years building is being swallowed by the sea. Only moments earlier, you were a successful merchant with money, business, and a clear future. Now you are fighting simply to survive. This was the catastrophe that transformed the life of Zeno of Citium. Born in the Phoenician city of Kition on Cyprus, Zeno had grown up in a world of trade and commerce. As a young man, he became a wealthy merchant, traveling across the Mediterranean and transporting valuable goods, including the famous purple dye that was highly prized in the ancient world. His life revolved around ships, profit, and successful business. Then, during a voyage from Phoenicia toward the Athenian port of Piraeus, everything changed. The ship was wrecked, the cargo was lost, and Zeno's fortune vanished beneath the sea. He survived, but he arrived in Athens with almost nothing. The man who had once controlled valuable goods now possessed no business, no wealth, and no clear future. What looked like the end of his life as he knew it would eventually become the beginning of something far greater. With his old world destroyed, Zeno wandered through Athens trying to understand what he should do next. The city was filled with philosophers, teachers, merchants, politicians, and ordinary people debating questions about how human beings should live. One day, Zeno entered a bookstore and picked up Xenophon's Memorabilia, a work describing the life and conversations of Socrates. He became fascinated by the Athenian philosopher's character. Socrates had no enormous fortune and no powerful position, yet he appeared remarkably independent from material possessions and public opinion. His strength came from his judgment, discipline, and willingness to question what everyone else accepted. Zeno asked the bookseller where he could find people like Socrates. The bookseller pointed toward a man passing by outside. His name was Crates of Thebes, one of the most famous Cynic philosophers of the time. Zeno followed him and became his student. Crates, however, did not intend to give his new pupil comfortable lectures. He wanted Zeno to understand philosophy through experience. Knowing that the young Phoenician was shy and worried about how others perceived him, Crates gave him a clay pot filled with lentil soup and ordered him to carry it through the crowded streets of Kerameikos. Zeno felt humiliated and attempted to hide the pot beneath his cloak. Crates responded by striking the vessel with his staff. The clay shattered, soup spilled down Zeno's legs, and everyone nearby could see what had happened. Crates then mocked his student's embarrassment, making it clear that nothing truly terrible had occurred. The lesson was about more than humiliation. Zeno was learning that other people's opinions only have as much power as we give them. Being laughed at could feel unpleasant, but it could not damage his character. Losing dignity in the eyes of strangers was not the same as losing something genuinely valuable. The experience helped him understand one of the principles that would later become central to Stoicism: external events may be uncomfortable, painful, or unexpected, but our judgment about those events remains far more important. Cynicism became an important influence, but Zeno did not stop there. For roughly 10 years, he continued studying under different philosophical teachers throughout Athens, searching for a complete understanding of human existence. He learned from Stilpo of Megara and encountered the rigorous reasoning of the Megarian tradition through thinkers such as Diodorus Cronus and Philo. He also studied at Plato's academy under Xenocrates and Polmon, where he explored questions concerning knowledge, reality, the human soul, and the structure of the universe. Instead of blindly accepting one school, Zeno absorbed ideas from several traditions and gradually developed his own system. From the Cynics, he took the belief that a person should not become enslaved to wealth, luxury, or social approval. From the logicians, he gained an appreciation for careful reasoning and intellectual discipline. From the Platonists, he developed a broader vision of nature and the cosmos. These influences eventually came together in a philosophy centered on virtue, reason, self-control, and living in harmony with nature. Zeno believed that external possessions could never provide genuine security because they could disappear at any moment. Wealth could be lost. Reputation could collapse. Physical comfort could vanish. Political influence could be taken away. Even life itself was temporary. What mattered most was the quality of the mind and character that faced these changes. This idea was not simply theoretical for Zeno. He had already watched his own fortune disappear into the sea, so he knew firsthand how quickly circumstances could change. Around 300 BC, Zeno began teaching his own philosophy in Athens. His choice of location was unusual and deeply meaningful. Rather than establishing an exclusive private school, he taught at the Stoa Poikile, the Painted Porch, near the heart of the Agora. The Agora was one of the busiest places in Athens, filled with merchants, politicians, craftsmen, travelers, and ordinary citizens. Philosophy was therefore brought directly into public life. People did not have to belong to an elite circle to hear Zeno speak. Anyone passing through could stop, listen, question him, and participate in discussion. His students were initially associated with their teacher and were known as Zeno's followers. Eventually, however, they became known as Stoics because their school was connected to the Stoa. The movement would grow far beyond the streets of Athens. Centuries later, Stoic ideas would influence Roman thinkers, statesmen, military leaders, writers, and philosophers. Yet the foundation of the tradition remained remarkably simple. A person should focus on what depends upon their own judgment and character rather than becoming consumed by things they cannot command. Zeno himself attempted to live according to these principles. Despite gaining considerable respect in Athens, he maintained a modest lifestyle. According to ancient accounts, the Athenians even offered him citizenship, but he declined because he wanted to remain loyal to his homeland of Cyprus. He had once measured his life through commerce and material success. After the shipwreck, he increasingly measured it through wisdom and virtue. Around 262 BC, Zeno's life came to an unusual conclusion. According to an ancient account, he was leaving his school when he stumbled and injured his toe. He fell to the ground and struck it with his hand, then quoted a line associated with the tragedy Niobe, "I am coming. Why do you call me?" He then calmly accepted death. It is difficult to know exactly how much of this story is historical and how much was shaped by later writers who wanted the philosopher's final moment to reflect his teachings. But the symbolism is powerful. Zeno had spent decades teaching that human beings cannot command every event that happens to them. They cannot prevent every loss, avoid every disappointment, or control the actions of other people. What they can influence is the judgment they make and the way they respond. His own life had begun with an event he could not control. A shipwreck had destroyed his fortune and forced him into an entirely different existence. Yet years later, he could look back and describe that disaster as fortunate. He reportedly said that he had made a prosperous voyage when he was shipwrecked. Without the destruction of his old life, he might have remained a wealthy merchant focused on trade and profit. He might never have entered that bookstore, never discovered Socrates, never met Crates, and never developed the philosophy that became Stoicism. The sea took away everything Zeno believed he possessed, but it also separated him from a life that might never have given him the purpose he eventually found. His fortune disappeared beneath the waves, but from that catastrophe came a new way of understanding life, suffering, freedom, and human strength. The shipwreck was supposed to be the end of Zeno's journey. Instead, it became the beginning of his greatest one.